The music world is in utter disbelief tonight. First came the tragic death of Angie Stone, sending shockwaves through fans everywhere. And now, before the world could even begin to mourn, D'Angelo, her longtime love and creative partner, has also died under chillingly similar circumstances. But what no one expected was for R&B legend Al-B, sure to come forward, breaking his silence and naming names. He claims there's more to this story than anyone realizes, hinting at a dark secret that could expose who's really behind Angie Stone's mysterious death, and possibly D'Angelo's too. What Al-B sure revealed might rewrite everything we thought we knew about these two soul icons. When the world lost Angie Stone, it was one of the most heartbreaking moments in modern R&B history. Her voice, her music, and her influence had touched generations. But before anyone could begin to heal, tragedy struck again. D'Angelo, the man who once shared her love, her stage, and her heart, was suddenly gone. Two legends, both gone far too soon, under circumstances too similar to ignore. Now, Al-B, sure, an icon in his own right, has stepped into the spotlight, and what he's saying is sending chills through the industry. In a recent revelation, he hinted that these deaths were not random tragedies. He believes hidden forces within the music world may have played a role, and that the truth has been buried for far too long. I end this video. We'll explore what really happened in the days leading up to D'Angelo's death, why Al-B sure decided to speak out now, and what his shocking claims could mean for the entire R&B community. You'll hear about strange coincidences, secret meetings, and a timeline that doesn't add up. Unless someone wanted it that way, we'll also look at how D'Angelo and Angie's deep personal and musical connection might have made them targets in an industry that often hides more than it reveals. Because when two icons die within days of each other, and a third demands justice, something bigger is clearly at play. Those close to D'Angelo say that in the final weeks of his life, he wasn't himself. Friends noticed subtle changes, sleepless nights, long silences, and moments when he seemed lost in thought, as if something was haunting him. He would shift from bursts of creative energy to hours of withdrawal. His family believed he was simply exhausted, but others sensed something darker. According to sources, D'Angelo had become increasingly cautious about who he trusted. He turned down calls, canceled meetings, and spent long hours alone in his studio. Some said it felt like he was hiding from someone. One friend revealed that D'Angelo once confided he'd seen and heard things that didn't feel right, disputes with powerful industry figures over business and royalties. It wasn't just about money, though. It was about control, ownership, and power, issues that have long destroyed careers in the music business. After Angie's passing, D'Angelo was devastated. They shared not only a son, but years of intertwined history and music that defined a generation. Those who knew him said that after her death, he became anxious and paranoid, convinced something was off around him. He often said he felt watched. In his last studio session, D'Angelo appeared distracted, checking his phone and pacing between takes. When asked what was wrong, he reportedly said, "There are people who don't want me to finish this record." At the time, it sounded like exhaustion. Now, it sounds chilling. He refused to share demos or files electronically, saying he didn't want anything leaking. When a friend joked about hackers, D'Angelo replied, "It's not hackers I'm worried about." His final sighting came late one night, looking tense and drained. Hours later, the world learned of his sudden, unexplained passing. For fans, it was déjà vu, another icon gone too soon, another mystery unanswered. Then, Al-B sure spoke up. In an emotional live stream, he said, "I'm tired of watching people I love die mysteriously. This isn't bad luck. It's not coincidence. It's control." That one word, control, sent shockwaves through the internet. Within hours, fans were combing through old interviews, lyrics, and posts searching for clues. And when Al-B sure later said, "These weren't random tragedies. Both of them knew things," the question became impossible to ignore. What truth did they uncover, and who wanted it buried? Both of them had been working on something together before everything fell apart. Now they're both gone, and that single fact reignited an entire storm of speculation. What kind of project could have been so sensitive, so dangerous, that two major artists connected by love, legacy, and truth would end up dead within months of each other? Insiders within the music community began whispering about unreleased material, recordings that D'Angelo and Angie Stone had supposedly finished before her passing. Some believed these weren't just songs but messages, coded references to hidden realities within the industry, truths disguised in melody. Others said the music was never meant to reach the public at all. ASLB. Schur continued speaking out. His words grew more direct. He began pointing fingers toward the upper circle, a chilling phrase many interpreted as record executives, powerful managers, or people tied to deep financial interests in the business. "It's bigger than you think," he said. "When you start exposing lies, people make sure you don't speak again." Shortly after making those statements, Schur's social media accounts began acting strangely. Posts disappeared. Live streams cut off mid-sentence. Fans grew alarmed, drawing eerie parallels between his warnings and what had already happened to D'Angelo and Angie Stone. To some, Al was a truth-teller, a man brave enough to expose a pattern others were too afraid to acknowledge. To others, he was reckless, stirring controversy without proof. But regardless of belief, one thing was clear. Something about this story didn't add up. When multiple artists start speaking in code, expressing fear, or hinting at being silenced, history shows there's often more beneath the surface. And when those same artists end up dead, coincidence becomes a hard thing to believe. What made Schur's claims so powerful wasn't just what he said, but who he was saying it about. These weren't strangers. These were people he knew personally, artists who had trusted him and confided their fears. In one emotional interview, Al recalled a chilling conversation with D'Angelo not long before his death. "If anything happens to me," D'Angelo had told him, "make sure the truth gets out." At the time, Al didn't think much of it. Now, those words haunt him. That moment hit fans deeply. People replayed the clip again and again, trying to understand whether D'Angelo had truly sensed danger coming. What began as quiet speculation exploded into a global online investigation. Forums, podcasts, and YouTube channels dissected every lyric, every timeline, every clue. Fans connected between Angie's mysterious passing, D'Angelo's strange final months, and Schur's cryptic statements. But the more attention this story got, the stranger things became. Sources who had initially spoken up went silent. Emails stopped getting answered. Accounts were suddenly deactivated. That's when whispers of a cover-up began. Rumors spread that people were actively trying to bury the truth before it got too big. If Schur's words were true, then this wasn't just about two artists, it was about a system. A system that decides who gets to speak, who gets silenced, and who disappears when they go too far. Before their tragic deaths, D'Angelo and Angie Stone had been working on a joint project that, according to those close to them, could have shaken the very foundation of R&B. It wasn't just another album, it was part documentary, part concept record. It was raw, personal, and dangerously honest. Both artists had grown disillusioned with the industry. Angie, known for her soulful power, had spoken openly about how Black artists were exploited and silenced. D'Angelo shared her frustration. He knew the feeling of being controlled, told what to sing, when to disappear. Together, they wanted to expose what really went on behind the glamour. Sources say they recorded late-night conversations, studio sessions, and voice notes about manipulation, exploitation, and contracts that trapped artists for life. In one alleged recording, D'Angelo said, "They make you believe you're free, but every note you sing belongs to them. Every truth you tell has a price." The project reportedly included a song called "Freedom Ain't Free," a haunting fusion of gospel, soul, and pain that many saw as an act of rebellion. Executives were said to be furious. Two respected artists with loyal fan bases daring to challenge the system. That was dangerous. Then production stopped. Weeks later, Angie Stone was gone. The official story said natural causes, but fans noticed inconsistencies and strange online activity before her death. D'Angelo was devastated, but soon vowed to finish their work. "They buried her truth," he told a friend, "but I'll make sure the world hears it." Within weeks, he began receiving strange calls, growing paranoid, changing studios. Still, he pressed on until tragedy struck again. His death, too, came with questions and confusion. Afterward, rumors spread that the master tapes had vanished. Al-B sure hinted, "If you find the tapes, you'll find the truth." Since then, fans have searched obsessively through old interviews, music videos, even lyrics, believing D'Angelo left clues behind. Now, one haunting question remains. Where are those recordings, and what could be on them that was worth silencing two legends for? Because if what Al-B sure says is true, this story doesn't just expose a cover-up, it reveals an entire system built to hide the truth. When news of D'Angelo's passing broke, it didn't just shock fans, it stunned the entire music world. The outpouring of grief was immediate. Fans around the globe flooded social media with tributes, posting clips of his soulful performances and heartfelt interviews. Celebrities expressed disbelief, calling him one of the purest voices in R&B. But behind the public sorrow, there was something deeper, an unease, a growing sense that this wasn't just another tragic loss. Al-B sure was one of the first to say it out loud. In a raw, emotional Instagram video that was later deleted, he said, "They took another one. First Angie, now D. You think that's a coincidence? I don't." His voice cracked as he spoke, visibly fighting back emotion. "I know what I heard. I know what they were working on. And I know why they're gone." Almost immediately after that video went viral, Al-B sure's account was restricted. Certain posts disappeared. Rumors spread that he was being warned to stop talking. Some fans speculated that his sudden online silence was due to industry pressure, while others feared for his safety. A few days later, an insider who had briefly worked with D'Angelo came forward. She claimed that just before his death, D'Angelo had confided in her about feeling unsafe. According to her, he said, "If anything happens to me, don't believe what they say on the news." That haunting statement resurfaced online after his death and fueled an explosion of conspiracy theories, independent investigations, and fan-led speculation. Meanwhile, the public was told very little. Official reports cited vague, health-related complications, but the inconsistencies were hard to ignore. Why was there no clear timeline of events? Why were certain records sealed? And why did people who initially spoke about it suddenly retract their statements? Within weeks, independent journalists and dedicated fans began compiling evidence, timelines, interviews, and unexplained coincidences that linked D'Angelo's death to Angie Stone's. Both had reportedly been finalizing a similar project. Both had spoken out about the darker sides of fame. And both had privately expressed fear in their final months. It was almost too eerie to dismiss that in one viral podcast episode, an industry whistleblower claimed that the project they were working on was never meant for release. He said that certain powerful figures within the business panicked once they realized the material might go public. When asked to elaborate, he paused before saying, "Let's just say some truths are too expensive to tell." That phrase, "too expensive to tell," became a rallying cry online. Hashtags demanding justice for D'Angelo and Angie Stone trended for weeks. Reddit threads, YouTube breakdowns, and TikTok documentaries dissected every clue. Fans pointed to hidden lyrics, subtle references, and encrypted notes in D'Angelo's unfinished demos that seemed to hint at censorship, betrayal, and control. Despite the mounting backlash, Al-B sure refused to back down. In a later interview, he said, "This isn't about fame. It's about truth. These people weren't just artists. They were voices. And they were silenced because they refused to play along." But soon after that interview aired, strange things started happening again. A small independent channel that had uploaded clips from the conversation suddenly had its videos removed. The host received a copyright strike that didn't make sense, the kind typically reserved for corporate claims. Weeks later, that same host tweeted that his account had been hacked and his files deleted. IT was starting to look less like coincidence and more like a coordinated effort to erase a story before it gained too much attention. Friends of Al-B sure began urging him to be careful. He reportedly received anonymous messages warning him to let it go. Yet he stayed firm. "If I don't speak," he wrote in one post, "then their deaths mean nothing." Meanwhile, fans continued to dig deeper, discovering eerie similarities between other artists' experiences, sudden deaths, mysterious disappearances, or unreleased projects that seemed to vanish without explanation. The question grew larger with each discovery. Was there a pattern of control within the music industry that stretched far beyond Angie Stone and D'Angelo? Even now, fragments of their final work are rumored to exist, possibly locked away in private collections or hidden somewhere only a few trusted friends would know. Some fans claim that short clips have leaked online, soulful harmonies layered over lyrics about freedom, light, and breaking chains. Whether these recordings are genuine or fabricated remains unclear, but one thing is certain: the message they both stood for refuses to die. Both D'Angelo and Angie Stone believed in truth through music. They believed that the art they created could free not only themselves but others trapped in a system that profited from silence. And though their voices have been quieted, their message continues to echo across generations of fans and fellow artists who refuse to stop asking questions. Because if those recordings ever surface, if the tapes I'll be sure mentioned truly exist, they could hold the key to understanding what really happened. Not just to two legends, but to an entire generation of artists who dare to speak out. And that's why, for many, this story isn't just about loss. It's about revelation, and a truth that refuses to stay buried.